Hey guys, today I'm going to show you how to install an aftermarket stereo on a 2010 to 2015 Toyota Prius. This is a 2011 with a JBL amp and no navigation. This is the stock unit. I looked online and I didn't see any really good videos on how to do this, so hopefully this will help you guys. I'm going to show you the disassembly of the trim panels, how to get the factory radio out, what parts you need, how to install it, and then the wiring diagrams and such. So I'm just going to show you here. There's a lot of stuff going on. I'm going to clean that up, and once I get that cleaned up, I'll just walk you guys through it. Right now these steering controls do not work, so there's a separate adapter that I need to install in order to get that working. The products that I need to buy were this Axxes TYTO-01. I'll put a link in the description on where to buy it. And essentially what comes in here, I already took everything out, but essentially there are two harnesses. There's a harness that goes to the factory stock wiring. I didn't have to do anything there except plug that in, and that plugs into this module. And then there's another harness that I had to plug in, and this plugs into the wiring that goes into the aftermarket stereo. So I had to do some connections here, but there's essentially three parts to it: this module and two cables. And then in order to retain the steering wheel controls, there's this Axxes ASWC-1, and the parts that came inside here were this module and then this harness. So this harness actually has a 3.5 millimeter jack, but if you don't have that, they also have this connection where you can plug that into this wire, and then you hardwire this into your radio. So the three parts that came with this package were the module, this harness, and this 3.5 millimeter adapter. This is the new faceplate that we'll be installing. The number is 95-8226B. This is the double DIN. They also sell a single DIN one. Inside the package we have the instruction manual, the faceplate, this plastic bracket, and this one as well. I'm going to show you guys very quickly how to remove the stock head unit. I already removed these trim panels, but the process is the same. I was very careful with the flathead screwdriver, but if you're not very careful and you don't want to damage your trim pieces, you can use the plastic prying tool. And essentially I just went right here and I popped this up a little, and then you can work your way around, but I was able to pop it off where I can just use my hands and pull all this off. Once you pry this off, there's going to be two plugs. They're the ones right here. For these, you just push the tab in on the bottom and then pull it out. So those are those two. Then you have this long trim piece, so you can open this. You can open this and then use your prying tool to pop this off. And once that's loose, you just pull this entire thing out. So you can see that there's tabs, plastic tabs right there, and then there's some down here as well. But just use a little force, and then you get that piece off. Put that aside. You can work this trim piece off. Just pull this, and this whole thing just pops off. And there's going to be a plug that goes behind this clock switch, and it's the same thing. Just push the tab, pull it off. Once you get that off, there's this piece right here. You just pull this out, and you don't really have to do anything with it. Essentially just want to get this out of the way because there's going to be four 10 millimeter screws. There's going to be one right here, one right there, one right there, one right there. What helped me was using this really long extension, 3/8 inch extension socket. I just went like that, down here, got that one out, that one, got that out, and down there, got that out. And once you have that, you can just pull this unit, and this whole thing comes out. And just be careful because there's plugs in the back. So I already got that out, but for this unit, which might be the same for the navigation units, I had these three plugs right here, and I also had this parking switch sensor and antenna one right there. So I had these. Yours may be a little different. And then for this purpose, we're going to be focusing on this harness, this one right here, and then this one right here, and I'll show you guys a diagram of what these mean. Here's a quick rundown of the different harnesses and where they plug into. So we have 4 harnesses right here. There's these 2 that plug into the amplifier module, so this one plugs in right there, and then this is the steering wheel controller, and this is the adapter that goes inside the aftermarket head unit. So let's start right here. So this is the one that plugs in to the car right there, so we would plug that in, and then if we follow these wires, there's 2 branches. This branch right here, we have the blue one, which we're not using. We have this black and white one, which we're not using. We have this black one, which is ground. It's connected to ground to this aftermarket harness. We have the orange one, which is illumination, that's connected to that. We have this yellow one, which is the battery. It's always on, which is plugged into here. And then we also have this red accessory. So when the car is turned on, then this receives power, and that's plugged into the red one over there. On to the next branch. This plugs in back here, and I just kept it unplugged just for ease so you guys don't get confused. Then we have this. This is like a amplifier module, so whatever signal it takes, it does some kind of conversion, and this harness right here is only for the speakers. Typically on the speaker wire, there's like the left front, left rear, right rear, and that corresponds to these green, white, gray, and purple cables. There's a negative and positive for each, so there's 8 wires right there. If we look at this cable, all of these wires are just plugging into those speaker wires. This green one is plugged into the green one there. This green and black one is plugged into the green and black one over there. This white one is plugged into the white one there. The white and black is white and black. Gray, gray, gray and black, purple, 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 black, purple, black. So that's all the speaker stuff right there, okay? There's also this blue and white one, which is amplifier on. This needs to be connected to power in order for this unit to work, because I tried it without it and I didn't get any sound, so this needs to be plugged in. I couldn't find what cable it corresponded to in the factory harness right there. Like, I wasn't sure how to connect that there, so I read on an Amazon review that this dude, he just plugged it into the accessory, and that's why you see that there's 2 of these plugged into the accessory right there, and it seems to be working. Moving on to the next one, which is the steering wheel control. There's only 5 wires that we need to plug in. This red one that's connected to the accessory right there. We also have this 3.5 millimeter cable that's connected to this, and back here your unit might not say SWC. My one says W/R, which is like wired receiver, so I just plugged that in there and it seems to work. I originally thought I was supposed to put in an auxiliary, but when I tried putting in there, it did not work. So make sure you plug it in there, and if you have a different plug, like this one, it says a system remote control, you might have to plug it in there, and it came with another harness with the 3.5 millimeter into 2 plugs, and then you got to figure out how that plugs in. But for me, this works for me. The other ones that we used were this black one for ground, there's this green and orange for a switch, and then this green and black for a switch. So let me just show you where these plug into. The black cable is plugged into the pink one, which is pin 6. The green and orange is plugged into the red one, which is pin 7. And the green and black one is plugged into the green one, which is pin number 8. All of these other wires that I didn't mention, we're not using. You can tape them up and just put them on the side. These other cables that I did not mention, just tape them up and put it on the side. And these 2 other cables that I did not mention, tape them up and put them on the side. Lastly, moving on to this harness that plugs into the head unit. Your harness might be a little different. I'm just going to talk to you about the one that I have. We talked about most of these already, and the ones that I did not talk about. This is the system remote control, which I'm not using. There's also this reverse gear input signals. If you're planning on using a backup camera, you need to tap this into one of the cables that receives 12 volts of input when you're in reverse gear, so I need to figure out where that goes. This is a pretty long cable. There's this mute cable. There actually is a mute in the factory harness, which I'll show you guys. but it's not in this harness, so I'm not planning on using it because there's nothing, I don't want to run a cable by itself into the stock harness. There's also this green parking brake wire, so essentially you plug this into like your handbrake circuit. It won't let you use any of the functions on the head unit when your parking brake is off. I'm gonna do without this because I want the freedom to make adjustments while I'm driving. And I think that's everything. This is the back of the receiver, and I'm just going to show you my setup. Obviously it's going to be different for different people, but for me, I have, starting from the top left, I have the microphone in, I have the steering wheel controllers. This is a USB extension, so I can play movies off of a USB or connect my iPhone. This one right here is a 3.5mm auxiliary jack, so I can plug in any audio jack device. This is the harness that we're going to plug in later. These are different ones for like, this one is video in, audio left and audio right in, and then over here we have the rear view camera, which I'm going to plug in later, and this one we have the antenna that I'm going to plug in once I flip this around. I typically like to test the wires first to make sure everything is good before soldering it together. So soldering is the process of melting metal to combine these wires together. Then I'm going to use the heat shrink tube to go over this. Then I'm going to use the heat gun to shrink this so it gets a really good connection that doesn't break. You can also use those plastic twist caps, or some people just do this and put electrical tape, but there's a chance that this could fall apart. So if you guys don't have a heat gun, you can always use a lighter. I know that all of this works, which is why I'm soldering it. If you solder it before doing this, you might have to cut wires up and redo all this over again. With all of those connected, it wasn't working originally, so what you do is you put like a paper clip to reset this, and it'll start to blink, and then you hear some noise in the speakers, and then it'll blink a few times. So the red blinks are supposed to correspond to what receiver you have. So it detected that I have a Pioneer, which was 6 blinks, and then I'm just going to push the controls so I can change the mode. If you guys look here, there's a slot and it just fits in here perfectly. You'll do the same thing on the top, and notice that this tab is further to the left. You want that on this side because that is the top, and then we'll slide the unit in. I have the unit in. Make sure that this is flush and make sure it's the right side up. You want this to be the top, and just look at the holes up here. We're gonna screw these in. Repeat the process on the other side. I have everything plugged in and I slid it back in place. Now I'm gonna put these 10mm bolts back in. There's 4 of them. If you look at it, there's 4 tabs and that just slides in. That clicks in right there. Put the ignition switch back in place, that just clicks in. There's a plug right here for the clock. We gotta plug that back in. We got this plug plugged in. Just gonna slide this back on. Next we have this super long trim piece. So it's gonna line up with the holes over there and push that in. And that's in. Lastly, connect those 2 plugs. Which just goes in right there. There we have it. This is the final product. I do not have the backup camera connected yet, and I do not have the mic located. I might mount the mic here or somewhere up here. I haven't figured that out yet, but just want to show you guys that this does work. I can change the volume. I can change the station, and I can also change the mode. There you have it. I wasn't sure if it was this module or the other all-in-one. They were saying that the fader does not work. For me it does, so I'm just going to show you. So let's go to the left. So all the sound is coming from there, if you guys can hear it. I hear it from the front left. And I can hear it from the back now. I'm gonna go over here. Now I hear it from the passenger rear. And for this one, I hear it from the passenger front.